Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching this. It's the SBR Ice Guys show for the guys who thought that without Ian, they had bad luck. I got bad news for you. Perhaps you won't be happy with today's show either. But I'm Dana Lane along with Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis as we tackle the two games coming up, one tonight and one tomorrow, and we'll get right into it. And guys, tonight the Washington Capitals take on the Tampa Bay Lightning from Amalie Arena. The Tampa Bay Lightning have had a couple days to prepare, and Washington's been off for a day or so as well since their dismissal of the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern Conference semifinal. And opening number on this line is about where I expected. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but opening number $1.75. We see it creeping up to $1.80, $1.85 at Heritage. So apparently the general public does not mind laying $1.75 on this. And I'll go to you first on this, Alex. You know, is this going to be a situation where Tampa is going to be too much for the Washington Capitals? Is the Capital belly full after finally getting past the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Yeah, I think as far as game one is concerned, I mean, you got, like you said, you got a Tampa team that's rested, and you got a Washington team that's coming off of a extremely emotional win. Not only finally getting to the conference finals for the first time in 20 years, but in the two wins that they had to get there, winning in overtime, beating their arch rival in Pittsburgh. I think this is a huge letdown spot. And it's hard to say. How could you call a conference final game a letdown spot? But it truly is because of how big of a win this was for the franchise and this group going into Tampa Bay. And this is a Tampa team that's rested and has played very well at home. And even though Washington, you look at the regular season numbers, Washington has dominated Tampa for quite some time. They've won 13 of the last 18 meetings. So that should be some incentive, even more for Tampa to realize, hey, this is a team that has found a way to beat us in the regular season. We can't let them use their positive momentum to try and outdo us in the postseason now. So I think it's going to be a really tough battle for. I lean with Washington because of the price. I mean, $1.60. I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched, but the situation definitely leans itself toward the Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% on board with that. I mean, I don't know if matchup wise, if I agree that the Washington Capitals are on the same page as Tampa, because for me, Alex, I really don't even think that the Lightning best players have shown exactly what they can do over a playoff series. I mean, you look at Nikita Kucherov and Tyler Johnson. I mean, these guys have not been doing that in the postseason yet, although they've gotten plenty of pucks to the net. It's just I think that there's other guys from Tampa that really are probably kind of resetting themselves and saying that we need to have a good postseason here. And if we do, I mean, I'm not too sure if they don't beat Washington. I mean, I never like to go 5 games, but maybe in 6 games. And I don't know if it's when it's all said and done, if we kind of look at this series and think that Washington came close. I always and I'm changing the way that I kind of handicap games because year to year, guys, you know, you have to kind of evolve the way that you handicap. And the last 2 years, I said, okay, well, which team do I believe is putting more pressure on opposing goaltenders? And obviously that could lead to just straight on goals, but also that leads to rebounds where you can get greasy goals. And which teams do I think are tough down low in the low slot area? And that kind of led me to the Penguins in the last 2 seasons. It also led me to the Penguins this year because I felt like that as far as teams that were, they were kind of the same in the same mold. The problem is once they got to the postseason, there was no secondary scoring for them, so they basically became a one-line team, as I thought Nashville did. Uh, but you know, going back to the original point on this, um, they're not getting any blue line production. Certainly, again, are getting pucks down low. They're not getting on the score sheet, and I just think that Kucherov and Tyler Johnson will show up big in this series. And going back, I remember what my original point is. This is what happens when I find out 30 seconds before the show I'm hosting. The original point was I think the evolution of handicapping has gotten different for me because the Washington Capitals were last in the National Hockey League in shots on net, although they're certainly one of the most productive offensive teams. And I think we're kind of getting into an area where it's quick passing, it's better spacing, it's quality over quantity, and I think Tampa has all those intangibles, and with the fact that I still expect there are other guys to be better. I mean, I just think that they have every advantage walking into this series. Andrew, your thoughts on the overall series and your thoughts also in game one.
Yeah, well, I mentioned it yesterday on our show, guys, that I do have to give a lot of respect to the Washington Capitals for taking care of that depth team that is the Pittsburgh Penguins. But overall, guys, I do think this Tampa Bay Lightning team is too much for this Washington Capitals team. And, if you look at these two teams overall this season, how many goals they averaged per game, I mean, they were lighting the stat sheet. And if you looked at, a matchup between these two teams in the regular season, we'd all be screaming over, over, over. But right now, I have to wonder with Vasilevsky and Holtby, the way that they're playing, what we can really expect for a game one and a trend throughout this entire series. But it's like Dana said, I don't think we've really reached the peak of what we can see from this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Whereas, to use the term that Dana likes to use, the whole belly being full term, I think that the stars like Kuznetsov and Ovechkin, their bellies might be full and they might have kind of reached their maximum ability. And, I just think that there's too many guys and too many numbers that can be called for this Tampa Bay Lightning team, not to mention their defensive core and Vasilevsky back there that you can rely on. Whereas for the Washington Capitals, I think there's too many intangibles and too many variables that have to happen in order for them to be successful. So I understand we're getting a very heavy price on this Tampa Bay Lightning team. So I might be looking for a Tampa Bay team total over tonight, just simply because I don't think that Washington's going to be ready for the firepower they have to offer. And once again, I'm not going to discredit the defense and their ability for shutting down the three deep lines that the Pittsburgh Penguins have to offer, guys. But I think that if you compare these two teams that they're facing in comparison to the Pittsburgh Penguins, now this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I think Tampa has a lot more to throw at you. And, Dana made an excellent point. And I was going to echo the exact same thing about quality and quantity. I think that these two teams are a perfect example of that. I think this Washington Capitals team, they don't get a lot of chances. When they do get chances, they make good use of them, and they're usually dangerous scoring opportunities. So with this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I think their power play is going to be crucial, but quick shifts and moving that puck around, making good use of their opportunities. I think we're going to see Stamkos, Tyler Johnson, Kucherov, guys like that are going to make special plays, talented plays, and I think they'll take this serious. But I do think Washington challenges them. In game one, I will be looking over the total. I think it's going to be one of those games, guys, where neither team is going to try and really be too defensive. I mean, those two goalies are very talented, but it's going to be a race to 4 goals, in my opinion, in this first game, and I think Tampa Bay takes that. So, it's oftentimes we look at it, we say to you guys, there's no problem in looking at juice, but also look at different opportunities, regulation, team totals, certain period totals. That's what I'd recommend. So for me, I'm on the over in game one. I think it's going to be a goal fest.
Alex, when you handicap this series, do you think about Tom Wilson at all? And the fact that he probably is going to try to show up for every game this series and not do anything stupid. But I worry about teams that have a guy like that. That was one of my worries about Ryan Reeves getting thrown into the fire late into the Vegas series, because I just know that he plays maybe to the edge or over the edge sometimes, and we certainly know that Tom Wilson does. And I wonder, like, if he's going to be in a position to put his team at a disadvantage, and if Tampa Bay is given an abundance of power play time, boy, I'll tell you, I don't. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say 5 games, because I have to give the Capitals a little bit more credit than that. But boy, I just don't see, especially down the middle, where I don't think that Washington can match Tampa Bay. I just worry. I worry for the Capitals of whether or not that the Lars Eller line is going to be productive. I worry about Travis Boyd, guys like that. I mean, I don't. You go down to Boyd and Jay Beagle's biggest attribute or contribution to the team is certainly in the face-off stuff. But I don't know how you can say anything else but the Tampa Bay Lightning. But going back to Tom Wilson, I mean, does it factor into your handicapping at all? Thinking, wow, there's some hotheads on this team, especially with Tom, and if that becomes an issue, I just don't see how they're going to be able to stop the Tampa Bay Lightning offensively.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you do have to take in consideration. That's where looking at, Twitter and checking for like coaching notes and so forth. Because obviously, I would like to think that Barry Trotz is going to tell Tom Wilson, look, don't do anything stupid, but you still have to play your game. He's not going to automatically turn into a scorer with, super hands overnight just because he missed 3 games because of a bad hit. He's got to play his game. He still has to be physical, still has to be an agitator, but he has to at least rein himself in enough to know, like I said, you can't take stupid penalties. You cannot afford to give this Lightning team, like I said, an abundance of power play time because they will absolutely bury you. But so it's something that you look at. I would like to hear, like I said, notes from Trotzer, maybe even Wilson himself. But that's the way I kind of factor into that. I'm not gonna, I don't think we're gonna see him get scratched at all. Maybe if he does start taking a couple of dumb penalties in game one, maybe we see him sit down in game two. But I don't think that's the case. I think he's still gonna play his game. But I think he's realized now, hey, I got to leave the dirty stuff alone. I got to, play as clean as I can, but still play hard, still play my own game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to me, I mean, the guy's not getting an abundance of time on the ice anyway, and he's really out there to be an agitator. But I just don't know if I'm Tom Will. I mean, listen, I thought Bruce Cassidy would go over to Marchand and say stop licking people too, but that didn't stop him from doing that, and it's over a long period of time. You can't tell me that he didn't have a conversation about licking opponents. I mean, I can't even believe that's coming out of my mouth. Yes, Tom has to play his game, but I don't know if Tom, what he brings to the game isn't more of an edgy presence to that first line, obviously more than it is offensively. And I'm just looking at the Capitals' depth right now, and there's really no comparison. I mean, you get guys like Chandler Stevenson and Devontae Smith-Pelly and Alex Chason and Beagle, as we mentioned earlier, even Travis Boyd. I mean, these are not household names. I mean, these are not guys that when you're talking about depth that I just don't think I can rely on. And certainly when you're talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning, you, you have from a depth standpoint, and even on that fourth line, I mean, your fourth line features Chris Kunitz. I mean, that's pretty good stuff there. I spent all morning, guys, really trying to find a reason why the Tampa Bay Lightning I shouldn't be as enthused about the Lightning as I am, but uh, maybe game one will change my mind, but certainly it will be a regulation play or nothing. But from my standpoint, of the two games between this one and the Vegas game tomorrow, I think I'm just going to kind of sit this one out and get a feel for the series, which moves us on to Winnipeg at the MTS place, where the Vegas Golden Knights will not have home ice advantage finally in a postseason series, and they go to Winnipeg for Game One. There is a lot of similarities between this team, and there's a lot of guys that Kevin. Will start with Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM, who was part of the Brandon Wheat Kings organization, and of course Kelly McCrimmon for the Knights was been part of that as well. They before coming to the Knights, and they both sent each other a text message last night congratulating each other. I think these are two teams that really know each other well. I made this point early on when we were talking about the potential series that what's great about Vegas in Winnipeg or Vegas in Nashville is Vegas knows that they could go to Winnipeg, Nashville, and win because they've done it during the regular season. Now that doesn't mean we can take the regular season and equate it to what's going to happen in the postseason because it's completely different animals. But neither Nashville or Winnipeg won here in Las Vegas, so that's something that kind of has to play in the back of their mind. And Andrew, I'll get your thoughts on this. Um, you know, Going into this, I walk, and I told this story many times. I watched the Winnipeg Jets jump off the bus one day when they were practicing and their only appearance at T-Mobile Arena, and I thought this is the most physical, largest team I have seen yet come into Vegas, and that's kind of still stuck in my mind. But when we're talking about this series, there is an intangible. There's something about this Vegas team that you can't put an analytical number to. You can't say, well, they've done this, so now they're going to do this. But because we know one thing about statistics, we know that they basically only reflect what you've done, not what you will do. And I think going into this series and moving forward, I'm going to go on record as saying that I think Vegas will win the Stanley Cup, and that is a that is a phrase coming out of my mouth that I really never thought I would say. But Andrew, quickly, we got 10 minutes left in this show. I mean, what are your feelings walking into this? Because we know on paper Winnipeg is the better team, but we know intangible wise Vegas is just a nut that just has not been cracked all season.
Yeah, Dana. Well, essentially, the way I see it is that this Winnipeg team, we've kind of gradually seen what they can do, and we're learning from them and making adjustments as the playoffs have moved on. But with this Vegas team, like you mentioned, I mean, there seems to be a secret. There seems to be something that we're not really seeing, and we're trying to figure it out exactly. And I know you do your write-ups at SBR, Dana, and I've read a couple of them, and I love to read them, and I love seeing what everyone's opinions are on different things and the way people approach games. But I find with this Las Vegas Golden Knights team, it's not just one thing specifically, and I think that really does acquire for the Winnipeg Jets as well. And I do think that they're going to be a little bit too much for this Vegas Golden Knights team. I had the same thought as you, and I saw you tweeted out, Dana, about Vegas going all the way. But there's something that I really thought about that last game, and we saw those first two goals the Pekka Rinne let in last night in the game 7, and we can all agree, guys. Both you guys can agree with me. Those are some weak goals, and those are not goals you're going to see in a conference final or a Stanley Cup final. I mean, we can all agree on that. But what that really does tell me, guys, is that there's no fight and there's no giving up in this team. There's a lot of fight. And there's a lot of different, they don't really care how they win. They just want to do it. They've got 4 lines that seem to be ready. I mean, when I'm going to keep mentioning this line, when you've got a line like Laine, Ehlers, and Paul Stastny right in between them, I mean, that's a veteran line with a young line with a vet right in between them. Those guys are going to carry them through this Las Vegas Golden Knights team. And to be quite honest, guys, in what games that we've seen, I don't think that unless Fleury stands on his head for most nights that this Vegas team is going to be able to keep up with the skill that this Winnipeg team has to offer. And, I'm never going to discredit Vegas. I'm going to, continue to talk about them and read what they're doing and take a look at this series day by day and game by game. But I just think as far as skill wise, the way these two teams match up, the way that Connor Hellebuyck is looking right now, and he seems pretty locked in and ready to go. I also think the Vegas rest might be a negative thing for them. I mean, I've heard they've been having good practices. I've been reading up on it. And, I've seen what they're doing. But when you're coming off of game 7, I usually like to take that team in game 1 of their next series. They're ready to go. They're coming off a hockey game. They're ready to go. It's just next game for them. Right now, this Vegas team feels like it's been a month since they even played a hockey game. And that might be a negative thing. So as far as the series goes, I'm going to take it day by day. But game 1, I'm looking at the Winnipeg Jets, and they'll have a strong game.
Yeah, and Alex, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Andrews mentioned the depth and line for line. I mean, on paper, when you look at it, I mean, there really is no comparison. The only thing for me is, if they can get some production from Cody Eakin, if they can get some, production, can continue to get production out of Alex Tuck on that third line. I mean, that gives them something. I mean, it's just, I don't know. For me, I mean, it's right, Andrew. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's got to steal this series because I'm my only thing about this, guys, is I don't know if I'm going to go into, and when you're talking about depth, I don't know if I'm as comfortable saying, well, Brian Little is way better than what Cody Eakin can offer. Adam Lowry is, 13, 14 minutes a game is statistically they certainly can. But I said that about San Jose and Vegas when they got the lead or when they were playing with confidence. I mean, their forechecking ability really forced teams to go 200 feet and beat them in every zone on the ice. And I just think if Vegas jumps out early, I think they can impose their will and use their speed because I think Vegas is a faster team than Nashville, and I think that Winnipeg will have to up their game, perhaps bringing a forward back to help their defensemen. But I just think they're going to say, "Wow, this is another level of speed going into the next round." Alex, what's your thoughts on Vegas and Winnipeg?
one of the big things that I look at, and Andrew, you talked on the point of a team with a game seven coming off of a quick rest against a team that's had a much longer rest in Vegas. And we thought that would be an issue, like I said, in the San Jose series with Vegas. Clearly, it wasn't. They came out guns blazing in that first game, and I think that's what we're going to see here too, as far as game one is concerned. I think at this point, Vegas really hasn't played with any kind of pressure. It seems like, as far as not, and I'm saying that from again, I mean as far as the pressure of them as a team, as a franchise, they're not feeling the pressure, in my opinion, of the whole, expansion team, making this deep of a run or being one of the final four teams overall. Whereas now with Winnipeg, I think pressure's mounting a lot more, especially being the last Canadian team, left in the postseason. Something I've talked about on previous shows. I think that pressure is going to be a lot more weighing on them than it is with Vegas. And I think with Vegas having the rest, I think they're able, like I said, matchup wise, there's a lot of talent on both teams. Like I said, there's guys that need to step up on both sides. I don't see, like I said, a giant discrepancy on one end or the other when you start getting down into like I said, the deeper lines. And as far as goaltending is concerned, I mean, Fleury's played out of his mind so far. So you say you have to steal the series. I mean, it's not like he's I think the goaltending edge is even sharper here than it was in last round. Clearly, it was in last round where Pekka Rinne and Connor Hellebuck. I thought those two goalies were going to, be lights out, and we're going to see a lot of big stops from them. But Pekka Rinne, ultimately faltered when he was needed the most, and that's why Winnipeg was able to move on. So I think here we're going to see, Fleury's A game still continue. I think we're going to see Hellebuck's A game continue more. I think it's going to be a lower scoring series that we've seen from both these teams who have a ton of offense. But ultimately, like I said, I'm not going to be playing anything in the series, but I still think Winnipeg is the best team in the Western Conference. They were my pick to win the Stanley Cup. I'm still going to ride with the internet's clipping out there, but I'm still going to ride with the Jets. I think they're going to win this series and represent the Western Conference in the final.
Okay, we'll get to best bets in a second. A couple minutes left in the show. Um, again, from a physicality standpoint, this will be the most physical team that the Knights have faced. Certainly, you can make a case for Dustin Byfuglien and Morrissey and Jacob Trouba wearing down the Golden Knights. But again, I have to see really game one. Are they able to engage the Vegas forwards? Because if Vegas has the speed advantage and they're chasing after them all night, I mean that really plays into the hands of Las Vegas and their this game one for me just completely sets the tone for the rest of the series. And it's not only who wins the game but by the way that they win or lose this game. I mean, if Winnipeg comes out and wins this first game 4-0, boy, it's gonna be difficult. I mean, and I know all these games are separate entities. I get that, but again, because I'm more of a psychological bettor, I'd like to kind of put myself into the locker room and see who has got the psychological edge. I think that really is going to give Winnipeg a ton of confidence and probably a team that has the most confidence of anybody in the National Hockey League. They border on arrogant. I will say this, and I've heard that from numerous people. So when you start feeding into that, boy, that's a tough hill to climb for the opposition. So let's get to best bets. Andrew, you can pick from either today's game or tomorrow's Vegas Winnipeg game. What's your best bet for tonight or tomorrow?
I just think in order for Washington to be successful whatsoever, they have to prove themselves. I think Tampa Bay is the better team right now. They have better depth, and their goaltending is huge. So I think that the over in the first period at minus 113, 1.5 is the play for me. It's going to have to be a huge start for them. They're going to have to come out fast. They're not going to beat this Tampa Bay Lightning team by being defensive. They're going to have to be loose and run four lines. And we're going to need to see guys that aren't Kuznetsov, that aren't Backstrom, that aren't Ovechkin being successful in order for this team to do anything. So over 1.5 first period, minus 113.
Okay, over 1.5, minus 113, Tampa Bay, Washington tonight. Alex, what's your best bet?
Like I said, I feel that Winnipeg is going to be able to win this series in the Western Conference. I think they're going to be the better team in the final. But however, I think the speed advantage and the rest advantage is going to be huge for Vegas in this game. One, we're getting a plus price. They're not afraid to play on the road. I'm going with the Golden Knights to win game one at plus $1.25. I think this is going to be, once again, a bit of a letdown spot for Winnipeg coming off of a very emotional and tough series. I think Vegas will be able to come out and dictate their pace, play their game within the first 60 minutes of game one.
Yeah, and for my best bet, I completely agree with you, Alex. I'm also going with the Vegas Golden Knights. They've had time to prepare both for Nashville. You can say, well, they didn't know who they were going to play. Believe me, these guys are preparing for both teams. They've had time to watch and prep where Winnipeg was still trying to win a series. So perhaps Vegas can go into Winnipeg, come out a plus money winner and steal one and home ice advantage in the series. So I like the Vegas Golden Knights plus on the plus price tomorrow night. So Andrew over 1.5 Tampa, Washington, Alex and myself, Vegas on the plus price. I guess we're done, guys. And any last words as we head into the conference finals? Ian Cameron back on Monday, where we'll discuss the or what day is it? It's Friday. No, we'll be back Sunday afternoon to discuss these two series after both have played a game one. So we'll see you on Sunday. Good luck to everybody, and thanks for watching.
All right, guys, that was a little bit choppy at the end, but the show's done, so we're good.
Well, you know.
All right, guys, see you later.
All right, I need to be more mentally prepared for these things. Okay, I'll see you. Good luck.
See ya.
All right, see you guys in a bit.
All right, see you guys.